Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and I source cars for people on a professional basis. Although most of the cars I source are between £1,000 and £5,000, very often I've been asked to show something a little bit cheaper on the channel, and so I came up with No Budget Reviews, the series where we look at cars that you can buy in good condition with an MOT for under £1,000 and you can enjoy driving. We don't film this in an expensive manner, we don't use separate microphones, we don't use fluid head tripods, we don't even use a DSLR, but we do have a lot of fun. Well viewers, we've already covered two Maestros on this channel so far, including this one. And now it's time for a very rare model indeed. This is a 1990 Maestro 1.6 Advantage. Note I didn't say Austin Maestro because by this stage these cars were not wearing a maker's badge at all. Just says Maestro on it. That was a decision that the Rover Group took, which was previously Austin Rover in 1988, to badge all their cars as Rovers or nothing. So the Mini, Maestro, Metro and Montego just got their own little makes. One of the things I remember about these most of all is the little hazard light switch at the top of the steering column. It's typical of loads of cars of the era. The same sort of thing as on a Rover 800. I do prefer this newer dashboard. I know some people like the earlier one. I know this one is actually cracking, as you can see in a couple of places, actually lifting as well, but nevertheless I prefer this later dashboard. It's not any more nostalgic for me because the Maestros that my grandfather owned were more like this, but it just is a bit easier to use. The levers and things, if you're a driver, they're right here, which is really good. No electric windows in this car, they would be sort of down at the bottom, but we've got manual windows, we've got no rev counter and no power steering. I don't know, but I'm becoming like Ian Seabrook more and more, obviously. If I like things like this, I should be saying that's terrible, but for some reason I don't. We've got the indicator stalk and wiper stalk was also used in things like the Rover Metro. And still the old Volkswagen 5-speed gearbox. Should be a choke lever around this. Oh no, maybe it's auto choke. Okay, auto choke. Brilliant. Now to fiddle around with a leader then. This sort of seat upholstery is very similar to the early R8 as well. I've had an early R8, so I can tell you. I remember as well the manual sunroof that my grandfather had in one of his. So it's all very familiar and very wonderful. And again, there we are, the little caravan symbol, which used to intrigue me no end when I was younger. For some reason, we've had a chance to redesign this dashboard, or rather just lift the one out of the Montego and put it in this. And they still haven't moved the switches for the rear wash wipe. They're still down there, little coin tray as well there. That's probably because these originally were for the Montego saloon or something, and you know, the Montego saloon doesn't have a rear wash wipe. It'd be a wonderful world if it did, but it doesn't. Right, let's have a look in the back. I just love this British race green paintwork. It's supposed to look a bit like an MG Maestro, but of course, well, the MG Maestros are a little bit different from this. They've even got a different gearbox in them. So, once again, quite a spacious car. Problem with this one is the headliner is sagging a bit, so I'm just going to be careful. And the sunroof as well will rob you a bit of headroom, but still, if I put the headlining up, it's actually not bad. I mean, you know, the back seat could go forward a bit, but even little things like window winder switches, ashtray, and the interior door handles are things I remember from my youth. And that really stiff rear locking knob. No rear armrest in this because it's only an Advantage. But look, your feet just slide right under there, so it's not so bad. If this headliner wasn't sagging, it would be fine. We've also got two courtesy lights in here, one either side. It's not bad really, and even the clock is showing the correct time. Fantastic. These white wheels are very similar to the ones that were fitted on a Rover 2.6 GTI and optional on the GSI at the time, but this is a 1990 car, so the R8 had just come out. There we go, lift the boot up again. It's quite a heavy tailgate actually in this. I mean, we don't have to worry about this V strut like the other one, still with Austin Rover symbols on them, although Austin Rover didn't exist by this stage. Lift up the parcel shelf and loads of room for all kinds of stuff, jacks and racing boots and things like that. Fantastic. It's even got colour-coded number plate lights. The only thing I've noticed is that it was quite common on the earlier Maestros for the plastic bumpers, and they were one of the first cars, if not the first cars, to be fitted with plastic bumpers like this. They used to crack in cold weather if at the slightest impact, and I think that's probably what's happened with this one. Nevertheless, it looks fantastic, and look at that, just Maestro, no other maker name, and the little Advantage thing. The Advantage obviously was available as well on the Metro Mini in Montego. Perhaps we'll find one of those these days, but I've never seen one in person of one of those, so yes, nice and rare. Right, let's take a look at the engine as well. So here we are, the 1.6 S series engine, generating about 84 horsepower, much the same as the one in the 1.6 HLS, although this is a different oil filler cap for some reason. I don't know why. Same Volkswagen 5-speed gearbox in here, sort of down there. Same masses of room to work on it, and suspension tower and McPherson strut front suspension. Right, we've sort of covered that a lot in the previous reviews, or rather two reviews, because all the cars we featured on no budget reviews that have been Maestros have all had the same engine, so I think it's time we go for a drive. So the thing about these later Maestros is that they were starting to sort of reduce the range as it went on. Now, in 1989, when the Rover R8 came out, first of all the 200s and then the 400s, they started to reduce the range a bit, but they didn't necessarily get rid of all of them. This Advantage, I think, was made from 89 to 90, and it looks very much like an MG Maestro. Theft rates for the Maestro turbos were absolutely ridiculous in the early 90s. Everybody was after them for very fast getaway cars, and they were very fast, with 152 horsepower. This only has a 1.6 S series with 84 horsepower, so it's a bit slower, but it feels fine. It's actually a fair bit nicer to drive than Patrick's earlier 86 1.6 HLS. It's a bit nicer. It's a little bit more refined. I don't know what they've done to it, but maybe they've put too much sound deadening in this, or it could just be the fact that this car's been in a museum for quite a lot of its life and it's been sort of pampered. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of the way this auto choke doesn't sort of work particularly well. I had to sort of pump the throttle like in a really old car to actually get it to start properly, but you know, it's just the way it goes often with these. Again, this nice handling and steering, it just feels this particular car just a bit nicer, you know, despite the fact we're sort of spec'd down in this and we haven't got the central locking or the electric windows or anything like that, or a rev counter compared with the HLS. Maybe I'd still have this, and that makes me feel very strange, because that's the sort of thing Ian Seabrook's going to say. We are, after all, in Wales, and that's where he lives, so perhaps he's having an influence on me indirectly, which wouldn't be the first time, because a lot of viewers of his channel like mine, and hopefully vice versa. But yes, it feels really good. I'm really, really happy to be driving this. So apart from this 1.6 S series with the auto choke and sort of carburettor, of course, but auto choke this time, other options were the 2-litre EFI that was used in the MG Maestro, as well as there's Montegos, that's about 115 horsepower. Then there was the MG Maestro Turbo, about 152 horsepower. Absolutely crazy, torque steer all the time. Then, of course, the Perkins Prima units, but as they are the forbidden fuel, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. So just happily going along here. The road's a bit pockmarked, unfortunately, but this later car does feel nicer to drive. It has a little bit more sound insulation, there are fewer squeaks and rattles in it. The seats, maybe, I don't know if they're more comfortable, they're certainly very comfortable as well. Just everything feels a little bit nicer, a little bit better made, obviously. Trim levels at this time were things like the SL and LX, they were 88 onwards only, but only for a couple of years. And then after that, once the MG got discontinued in 1991, really the only ones around were things like the Clubman, which was really stripped out. I mean, I think they reckoned that most people would be going for a Rover 200 by that stage. You wanted a sort of luxury. I mean, the Maestro just carried on for things like fleet sales, and the Perkins Prima Ranger ones were quite popular. Or, as well as that, the A series continued on, because obviously they were still making it for the Mini at that stage, so they still made this sort of base model. But yeah, things like the Maestro Special, Maestro Clubman, things like that. The Van der Pla and Mayfair models had gone by 1988. So, you know, for me, really, I prefer for those, and I'd like to try a late Van der Pla, really. I have seen one. There was one at the BMW Lenin show next to me, other Van der Pla that I've driven, and Patrick himself has a Van der Pla, but it's one of the earlier ones with a manual gearbox. So I don't know, possibly we can treat ourselves to some luxury at some stage. But for now, it's just been wonderful. I really like these, and really the later ones seem to be more expensive than the earlier ones in terms of Maestros for some reason. Maybe people sort of like me, they prefer the look of the later ones. What this car's worth, I have absolutely no idea. There are 2 Maestro Advantages left on the road. The cherry red one that I saw at the BMW Lenin show was owned by a friend of Patrick's, and this one, and that's it. So if you think you've seen a Maestro Advantage, well, you've now seen them in my videos, but in the wild, it's very unlikely. It's either going to be this one or it's going to be the other one, the cherry red one. And, you know, that's something of a shame. The spec is really weird. It's kind of based on the 1.6L spec, but just with all these cosmetic enhancements to make it look like a bit like MG and give, you know, slightly friendlier insurance premium, perhaps. But, yes, we have been enjoying ourselves very much this afternoon, and it's time to head back and draw some conclusions about the Maestro 1.6 Advantage. Well, viewers, the Maestro 1.6 Advantage. I would like to say, should you buy one of these? But, I mean, you can't. There's 2 of these left, and they're way outside no budget reviews money, I'm afraid. Obviously, you can buy Maestros for under £1,000 with an MOT, but these, yeah, the chances of getting hold of one of these is slim to nil, because there's 2 left, and this is the only one in green. So, yeah, sorry to have to break the news to you, but maybe you'll find another lovely later Maestro out there. Maybe, I don't know, a 1.6L, SL, something like that. Yes, well, that concludes for now our look at Maestros on no budget reviews. I'm sure we've got other stuff, though, coming up quite soon, which might be to your delectation. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, leave a comment below, and like this video. Social media links are down below. Thank you to Patrick once again for the loan of these 2 lovely cars, which for many like me are a trip down memory lane. And we'll see you soon for more low-cost motoring.